Okay, so percent show up a lot in our lives, especially if you're going shopping. So a store that'll say something is 30% off or 25% off, that means you're going to get a discount on something. And so it's important to understand what that means. So a percent is a ratio whose denominator is 100. So if you're looking at something that is 25% off, then that is 25 out of 100% off. So according to the Public Policy Institute of California, 44% of parents of public school children would like their youngest child to earn a graduate degree. Write this ratio as a percent. So 44% means 44 out of 100. Again, with this problem, I would be okay if you gave me 44 out of 100, but I really, really want you to get in the habit of reducing all fractions. So 44 out of 100 is the same as, they both have a factor of 4. It's the same as 11 out of 25. So because this problem really wasn't explicit about how they wanted the answer written, 44 out of 100 would be fine, but again, I want you to get in the habit of reducing fractions every time. Okay, this problem right here, it says, according to the U.S. Department of Education report, 21 out of every 100. Anytime you see that out of every 100, you are looking at a percent. So 21 out of 100. Students or first-time freshman college students at a 4-year public institution take at least one remedial course. Write this as a ratio and then as a percent. Well, right here, 21 out of 100, that is your ratio. That can also be written as a percent, as 21%. So this right here is your first part of the question. This right here is the second part of the question. Okay, on this problem right here, we're going to convert each percent into a fraction. So I've got 36 out of 100, which is what 36% is. And you always need to reduce your fractions. Even if it means plugging them into the calculator, use your fraction button, hit enter. It will give you the reduced fraction form. So I'm looking for 9/25 here. Okay, 9/25 would be the answer to part A. On part B, 125%. That means 125 out of 100. So we have an improper fraction here. And so whenever you reduce that fraction, you get, they both have they are both factors or have factors of 25, so they reduce down to 5/4. Okay, on both of these, we actually have decimals that are going to wind up being decimals within fractions, and that is never good form to have a decimal within a fraction. So on part A, I would have 24.5 out of 100 because that's what 24.5% means. But I would move my decimal to the right one place, which means I've got to move this one on the bottom to the right one place. So that means I have to add a 0 there. So this would really be 245 out of 1,000. Now, notice that the top ends in a 5 and the bottom ends in a 0. That means they are definitely divisible by 5. So whenever I reduce that, I wind up getting 49 out of 200. So 24.5% turned into 49 out of 200. Let's take a look at part B. 33 1/3%. I would turn that into an improper fraction first. So I would have 33 times 3, which is 99, plus 1. So I would have 100/3%. That's what 33 1/3% is. It's 100/3%. But remember, in order to get rid of that percent, I have to put that over 100. So I've got 100/3 over 100, which is the same thing as 100/3 divided by 100. So that's the same as, and remember, whenever we divide fractions, we keep, change, flip. So let's keep, change, flip on this problem. Notice how now the 100s will cancel each other out. So now multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. So 33 and 1/3% actually turns into 1/3. Okay, on this problem right here, we're going to convert each percent to a decimal. Some people find it easy to put the percent as a fraction first and then convert to a decimal. I just think it's easiest to move the decimal to the left 2 places. So on 6%, you actually have your decimal point right here after that 6. And so it's actually easiest for me to do this. To the right, or I'm sorry, to the left 2 places. Anywhere you have a valley that doesn't have anything in it, you have to put a 0 there. So 6% actually turns into 0.06. Now 78%, the decimal is actually right there after the 8. It's right here, so you have to move it to the left 2 places. So this winds up being 0.78. 78% turns into 0.78. And some people have asked me, is it okay to put that 0 out front? Yes, 0.78. You could also put this up here as 0.06. That is fine. Just not another 0 to the right of that decimal in between the 7 and the decimal. That's not okay. Okay, remember, I've been saying move the decimal to the left 2 places, not 3. So 135% actually turns into, here's the decimal right here after the 5, to the left 2 places actually turns into 1.35. And 12.5% turns into, scoot it to the left 2 places, so 0.125. In this problem right here, among a group of business leaders, 77% believe that poor math and science education in the U.S. will lead to higher unemployment rates. Convert the percent to A. Part A, they want us to convert it to a fraction. So we would say 77 out of 100. You should probably check to make sure that can't reduce, and it cannot. So we're going to leave it at 77 over 100. On part B, they want us to convert 77% to a decimal. So I'm going to scoot it to the left 2 places, and it would be 0.77. On this problem right here, there are 4 kinds of cards in a deck of cards: hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. The probability of randomly choosing a heart from a shuffled deck of cards is 25%. Convert the percent to A, a fraction. So I'm going to convert 25% to a fraction, which would be 25 over 100. Now that can reduce to 1/4. And on part B, I'm going to convert 25% to a decimal. So I'm going to scoot it to the left 2 places, and I get 0.25. Okay, so we've been converting percents to decimals. Now we're converting decimals to percents. So it would only make sense that we move that decimal to the right 2 places to turn a decimal into a percent. So on 0.05, I'm going to scoot this decimal to the right 2 places. So 0.05 turns into 5%. On part B, 0.83. I would scoot that decimal to the right 2 places. So I would get 83%. This problem right here, part A, I have 1.05 and I want to convert it to a percent. So I'm going to scoot that decimal to the right 2 places, and I wind up getting 105%. On part B, I have 0.075. Scoot that decimal to the right 2 places, and it ends up being between the 7 and a 5, so you have 7.5%. Okay, there's a couple of different ways to work these problems. I think that the easiest way is to convert the fraction into a decimal first and then scoot that to the right 2 places. So on part A, I have 3/4. 3/4 as a decimal, you can grab your calculator, or you just know that 3/4 is 3 divided by 4, which is 0.75. If I scoot that to the right 2 places, I get 75%. On part B, 11/8. On my calculator, I would type in 11 divided by 8, and I get 1.375. Now, to turn that into a percent, I scoot the decimal to the right 2 places. So the decimal is going to go between the 7 and a 5. So I would have 137.5%. On part C, I have 2 1/5%. I'm sorry, 2.2 1/5. And so on my calculator, what I'm typing in is 1 divided by 5, and I get 0.2. But don't forget I have that 2 out front, so this turns into 2 1/5 turns into 2.2. Now I still have to scoot my decimal to the right 2 places, and so notice I have an empty spot right there, so I have to put a 0 in there. So this would wind up being 220%. Okay, on this problem right here, converting 5/7 to a percent. Now this is where you're going to have to figure out your rounding, because this decimal is actually pretty long. If I type in 5 divided by 7 on my calculator, this is what I get. 0.714285714. And what if I didn't tell you where I wanted you to round, but I do know that if I convert this to a percent, I've got to move the decimal 2 spots, right? So I know I'm going to get 71 point something percent. It's a matter of now choosing how far out you want to go there. Typically, I say stop at 1/10 of a percent. So I want 71.4, but I need to decide if I need to round that 4 up. Because the number next to the 4 is a 2, that means I don't round that 4 up. I just leave it as a 4, and I would say 71.4%. If I had rounded this to the hundredths place, then I would have 71.43%. Now, why did I make this 2 a 3? Because the number next to it was an 8. So depending on what the problem says, you have to figure out how to round that number. You scoot the decimal to the right 2 places first. Then you look at your tenths or your hundredths place to determine if you have to round those up or not. Okay, this is another problem where you have to decide where to round. An article in a medical journal claimed that approximately 1/3 of American adults are obese. Convert the fraction 1/3 to a percent. On my calculator, whenever I type in 1 divided by 3, I get 0.33333. It just keeps on going, right? So if I want to convert that to a percent, the first thing I do not round before I move the decimal, I round after. So I scoot the decimal to the right 2 places, so I'm going to have 33 point, and now I look at, if I'm going to round to the tenths place, I look at the hundredths. Because that number is smaller than 5, I'm just going to leave it as 33.3%. So 1/3 means 33.3%.